3 o'clock on a football Friday. Why is it football Friday? It's the middle of the summer. I am not trying to rush the summer. I'm simply saying it's 50 days, 5-0, till we kick off college football in this state. So it's got us in the festive mood. We're thinking a lot of football. But I do have something for you Lions fans. We talked about would you take a national title if it meant that your program would end up, your coach would get fired within 3 years. If you missed that, hit the Odyssey Rewind. But right now, and looking at the Lions schedule, David, everybody is geared up for the game Thursday, September 7th at Kansas City, at Arrowhead. You're going up against the Chiefs, Super Bowl champions. What are you going to do? How are you going to figure? Is this going to jumpstart this season? If you lose that game, is that an acceptable loss? I don't really think people really know how they want to feel about that Chiefs game. But I will say this. I'm looking at the schedule. There are 3 games that are very important. There are 3 games that I would circle for this Lions team that I think you must win. That I think if you want to have a successful season, you have to win these 3 games. I'm going to tell you what my 3 games are. If you have games that you feel this team has to win, give us a call, 248-539-9797. But I will simply say this. I'm not including the first game because I don't really think the first game is going to tell you a lot about this team. I think it'll be a lot of hype. To me, the first game that the Lions must win is the Week 2 game, September 17th, at home against Seattle. Why is that? Seattle was the reason why you didn't make the playoffs. You beat Seattle, you own the tiebreaker, you're in. You stopped Seattle on the 4th down, you're in. You made Geno Smith the man that he was last year. He was a Pro Bowler because he got all his confidence coming into Ford Field and destroying your defense. You get a chance to right that wrong. And it's here at Ford Field again. You get to show that the defense is better. You get to show that the team is better. That's game number 1. Want to take a guess what the second game is?
At Green Bay.
David?
Because I just put that one on my list for mine.
At Green Bay. You got to go to Green Bay. Why? You have to make sure that Jordan Love does not rise up and become this quarterback. The dragon is slayed, it's wounded. You ran Aaron Rodgers out of town. You got to make sure that Green Bay does not come back. This is your chance to just end Jordan Love and the Green Bay season early and show them, new sheriff in town, we're not having this anymore. And it's Green Bay. It's probably going to be warm. So you don't have to worry about freezing cold temperatures. You can go into Green Bay and just beat them on the road. The third game that I think is the most crucial game that they have to win. The third most important game on the Lions schedule. Want to take a guess? Kenny.
At Minnesota, because that's on my list.
No. It is not at Minnesota.
It's Christmas Eve. That was mine. I figure that's the game you clinch on.
No. David, want to take a chance at this?
All right, I'm going to throw my next one on my list to see if it's on yours. At the Chargers.
No.
Oh.
No, not at the Chargers. When are they at the Chargers? Oh, no, November 12th.
Yeah,
not
that
at
would
the
be
Chargers.
after the bye week.
At SoFi. No, not there.
Bears.
Monday, October 30th.
Ah, right before the bye week.
Monday night, Ford Field, Las Vegas Raiders. Here's why that game is so important. The world is watching. Everybody is watching you. You cannot go out there and lose this game. You cannot go out there and get embarrassed in this game. I know here in Detroit, you've all fully bought in. But nationally, here's your opportunity to really sell your point and drive it home nationally. When people see the Lions and you see these nationally televised games, it's normally on Thanksgiving. And what do the Lions normally do on Thanksgiving? They lose. Okay? Here's your chance to go out there while everybody is watching, and you get the win against the Raiders. Those are the things that I think will help this team. Those are the three most important games to me. What are your three most important games, Detroit? 248-539-9797. Those games right there. Week 2, Seattle, here in Detroit. You get to right the wrongs of last year. You get to put Geno Smith back in his place. You may be 2-0, or you may be 1-1 at the end of that game if you win. But it also says, too, in the event that you lose at Kansas City, you can't lose week 2. Because statistically speaking, teams that start off 0-2 normally don't make the playoffs. Now, I know, spare me the whole, well, the Cincinnati Bengals did it last year. You don't have Joe Burrow. So miss me with that. You go 0-2, and a lot of people's hopes and dreams, we talked about, well, you got to win a division. You got to, no. You start 0-2, and statistically speaking, this ain't me being a hater, but statistically speaking, you're not going to make the playoffs. That game at Green Bay, and what was that, week 4? You basically have to make sure that Green Bay stays down, that they don't rise back up. You don't want Love to get any type of confidence whatsoever. And finally, the Raiders on Halloween weekend. Everybody is watching. This is your chance to just show people that this team is exactly what Detroit believes that it is, that they're a different team. They're not same old Lions, that they can go out there and they can win games. Everybody watching Monday night. Can you rise to the occasion? Can you get this thing done? And you got a team that I think is winnable. You can beat the Raiders. Not that difficult. What are your games that you've circled that the Lions must show up and win in this upcoming season? And don't tell me you haven't looked at the schedule, because everybody's played that schedule game. Everybody has circled, oh, this is the game they could win. I think this is the game they could shock the world. What are your games right here, right now? 248-539-9797.
My question is, it's on David's list, it's on my list, it's on your list. Is Seattle the most must-win game? Presuming we lose to KC week 1, which everybody is, which is fair. Seattle, you can't start 0-2.
You can't.
You got Seattle, it's at home. That's the get-right spot, right? I wish I could bet in advance to week 2 instead of just wait till week 1.
It's the get-right spot, Kenny, because in the event that you lose to Kansas City, which I think you will, but I didn't put Kansas City on the list because if you lose to Kansas City, that's no shame. That's Super Bowl champions. MVP and Mahomes.
It's how you look against Kansas City that's really going to be the important thing. I don't think anybody's projecting the Lions to win that game.
Don't let the game be over in the first quarter.
Yeah, right, exactly. Hang with them like, remember the Bills on Thanksgiving? Do that. Do something like that. Hang with them.
Right, we're on the next Monday. We're in here talking about, or that Friday, man, if they would have just made this play or they would have just called that timeout, they could have won that thing. Seattle is, because if you lose to Kansas City and you lose to Seattle, I think it's like a 15% chance you make the playoffs.
It may have grown, but going into last year, it was 9.5%.
Right.
Of teams.
So less than 10% chance that you will make the playoffs. Cincinnati may have improved the numbers last year because Cincinnati lost to Pittsburgh and they lost to somebody else early that they shouldn't have.
Correct.
But then they made the playoffs. If you lose to Seattle, you're right. Seattle almost becomes number 1. To me, Green Bay. No, I say the Raiders are number 2 for me, and then Green Bay, because you just don't want Green Bay coming back up.
See, and it's also not only the 0-2 thing why Seattle's important, but it's what happened last year. That game became a tiebreaker game for the Lions.
Yeah.
So you need to win that game. That is an NFC game.
You exercise the demons. Geno Smith became Geno Smith that day. I remember we made fun of Geno Smith all of that week. Mike was like, oh, that's Geno Smith over there. He's horrible. He's horrible. He wasn't so horrible. Ended up being a Pro Bowler. I know being a Pro Bowler doesn't mean that much, but he was. And he looked like it in that game. Over 90 points were scored. You couldn't stop him. He did what he wanted to do. Plain and simple. And he's the reason why you didn't make the playoffs. because they won their game against the Rams. They had the tiebreaker over you. You don't get to go. 248-539-9797. What are your games that the Lions must win this season?
Can I give you, because I told you what my third game, because I agree with you on Seattle, agree with you on Green Bay, but I placed the Chargers on there, and that's at the Chargers. That is the week after the bye for them. And I don't, right now, of course, we don't know what they do in the first half. Whatever, regardless of what they do, whether they're good, whether they're in the middle or bad, they have to start the second half off strong. And that's a road game, and I think that's why it's important for them to win that. Starting on the road to start your second half of the year. That starts the run towards the playoffs in my mind.
See, David, that's why I guess I don't have a lot of those games later on.
You just don't know yet.
Because if you lose those 3 games, the rest of the season is null and void. You're starting off in a deficit again. I don't know if you can pull the same rabbit out the hat. I don't think it can happen. That's why, week 2, week 4, and week 8 are my games that are the 3 most important games for the Lions this upcoming season. Seattle at home, at Green Bay, at the Raiders. Because I think the other games you can. Now, the more and more I look at it, man, that it's good as you play the Falcons in week 3 here because the Falcons are a little scary. But Seattle, that's a playoff team. That's a team that you want to be like it or not. You want to be like them. They made the playoffs. You didn't. The Raiders are for national perception because whenever you're on national TV, you don't do well. You beat the Packers last year, but outside Detroit, I don't know if anybody was watching the games because all the playoff spots were locked up. So it was football on, but you were kind of background noise because there was no repercussions. There was nothing that could happen in that game. Whether you won or lost, nothing was going to happen. I guess Green Bay could have won, but once you started winning, I think people kind of tuned out. You need to follow that victory up with you're in the primetime spot on Monday night, Halloween weekend. You got the Raiders in town. You got to go out there. You got to make it happen. You got to get it done. What's your 3 most important games this upcoming season for the Lions? 248-539-9797. Get your calls, your ticket text next, 97.1.